When I first started Red Dead Redemption 2, I felt a bit overwhelmed at all the characters. There seemed to be an already established story and chemistry between the characters. Hosea, Bill, Micah, Dutch, Arthur, John were immediately introduced to the dynamic. But as I started playing through the missions, I realized the most important thing is that it's through Arthur's eyes and Arthur's perspective. Learning to read the journal and pay attention to the general sentiment around camp really built on the world and gave a gravitas to the situation the gang found themselves in. Arthur seemed like a simple man, but he was surprisingly deep at times. Some things I wish I knew before playing the game. Reviving the horse, that was huge for me. I was very attached to my first horse. I'm a very sentimental and nostalgic person, and I like to use what I have. So whenever bounty hunters came after me and killed my first horse by taking shots at me, I was really sad. I actually put the horse down. And so I stole another horse that I used for the entirety of the game. It wasn't the best horse or the fastest, but it was the second horse that I ever had, and it meant a lot to me. Another thing I wish I knew before playing the game was paying bounties. It took me a while to understand that you could go to a post office and pay the bounty for each different region of the game. It made the game a lot more difficult having powerful NPCs always looking for you, spawning all the time. So that's something I wish I knew. Calling the horse, probably the biggest one. It was so convenient to just be able to whistle and have your horse come, especially from a far distance. That was game changing, finally figuring that out. Talking to people properly. It took me a long time to like really get comfortable with the controls, and there were times where I accidentally sucker punched somebody or pulled a gun on somebody or things of that nature, and it made for some funny situations. But overall, the controls on PC were a little bit confusing at first. And finally, the Deadeye mechanic. Deadeye was something that I wish I figured out earlier. I thought it was really cool how you could tag enemies, but my favorite thing was just manually going for a headshot. I thought that was really fun, and just how the cores work. Smoking cigarettes and powering up your Deadeye, that was really cool. And having to constantly refill that gauge so I could use it was really really fun, and I really enjoyed the Deadeye mechanic. My most favorite thing about the game I enjoyed was the immersion. The world felt so real. NPCs going about their daily tasks. It made the town seem alive, especially Saint Denis. Overall, my favorite town was Rhodes. I love the picturesque southern vibe and the scenery around that town. The lighting is really stunning in this game, especially the morning light. It just gives you a feeling of hope and endless possibilities. The sound design is also really well done. Sounds in the distance are actually things happening somewhere in the world that you can interact with. My favorite scene in the game was when the gang walked up on Braithwaite Manor in the middle of the night. That scene was awesome. It was very cinematic. Just having the whole gang together, and the music was so badass. And it was just so beautiful and cinematic. That's probably my favorite scene in the whole game. So that was a moment that really stood out to me. I also really liked this segment when we went to the island of Guarma. Just the disastrous boat journey there, and the dehydration, and just the unknown vibe of a distant land. The saddest overall scene for me that really resonated with me was when Arthur finally broke down to the nurse, or to the nun before she boarded the train. The motion capture and Arthur's voice actor was amazing, and they did such a great job. I just felt really sad at that point because Arthur was holding it all in. He never really told anyone about his condition, He would always joke about it and make sarcastic comments like he's doing just great or just peachy and everything's fine. And it wasn't until that point that he finally broke down about his condition. And it was really powerful how we as the player wanted nothing more than for Arthur to be okay and to pull through, but also the realization slowly setting in that this was a terminal disease and there was nothing we could do. It was very powerful in the last couple of chapters how simple tasks like eating and drinking, simply aiming the gun, running around, just things that we used to do and were so good at was becoming really difficult for Arthur. We could feel it. And I got really into hunting in this game. I'm not into hunting so much, but for some reason I just found it so much fun. And I spent several episodes just wandering around trying to hunt and collect upgrade my satchels and collect certain materials for trinkets. And it was so much fun. But it killed my desire to continue hunting and collecting. It made me want to keep pushing through to find out what was going to happen to this in the story and if Arthur was going to be okay. Overall, it was great, but I felt so sad about Arthur because I just became so attached to him as a character. I don't understand Dutch at all and why he waited so long in the end to finally shoot Micah. I know that this is a prequel and some of this is answered in the original Red Dead, maybe, but it just left me questioning it more. What was it all for? Was there ever really a plan? Another thing I didn't like was after Arthur's story, the story shifts immediately to John, and I feel like that took away from the impact of that scene. Besides this, it was a great game and it was a very fun experience. I feel like I experienced a bit of gaming history. I don't even like westerns, but I really enjoyed this game. It was my first playthrough that I fully recorded, and I learned a lot going forward that I'll apply to future games. Thank you to everyone who participated and I got a chance to interact with. I really appreciate the outpouring of support and love for this game. So thank you very much.